Hello, my dear students and the rest of the learners. Welcome to part 28 of a 41-part series of tutorials in Fundamentals of Object-Oriented Programming in Java. In this tutorial, we are going to be looking at Introduction to Arrays. My name is MemGM, or you can simply call me Emily Swap. What is an array? An array is an object that is used to store a list of values. It is made out of a contiguous block of memory that is divided into a number of cells. Each cell holds a value, and all the values are of the same type. Sometimes the cells of an array are called slots. The value stored in a cell of an array is sometimes called an element of the array, and an array has a fixed number of cells. The values in the cells, that is the elements, can be changed. An array is therefore a full-blown object and consists of more than just its cells. This is because every cell of an array holds a value of the same type, such as integer, double, and so on. The length of an array is how many cells that it has. So an array, or for example, length n has cells indexed as 0 to n minus 1. In other words, my dear students and the rest of the learners, if, for example, you have an array that contains 7 elements of the same type, that is, for example, type integer, then the index for each of them will be 0 to 6. Why? Because the first element in the array is always indexed as 0. So 0 is always the first value. It's the position for the first value, the index for the first value. So if the first value, the one which is number 1, if you have 7 values in an array as spanning from the first value to the 7th value, then the index for the first value is 0, or the index for the last value is 7 minus 1, which is 6. Therefore, if an array, for example, contains 5 elements, that is n is 5, the cells, that is the index for each of the elements, will be 0 to 4, which is 0 for the first element, to 5 minus 1, which is index 4. This is because in Java, the index of an array starts at 0 and it counts up to 1 less than the number of elements in the array. So counting loops can easily do that, as you are going to see. The arrays are therefore used to store multiple values in a single variable instead of declaring separate variables for each value. An array that uses a single subscript is called a one-dimensional array. This is because one index is used to access the values in the array. Its cells are like numbered boxes lined up one after the other in a line, like in a post office box or in a post office. A two-dimensional array, on the other hand, requires 2 indexes to access it or to access values. Its cells are like boxes arranged into a rectangle. The arrays of even higher dimensions are possible, such as 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, 5 dimensions, etc. To be able to work with the elements of an array, Java simplifies this by providing some of the following inbuilt functions to perform various operations as explained below. So these Java methods are found in the Java arrays class that you find from the java.util. So one of the methods is compare. What does it do? The compare method compares 2 arrays to see if they are the same. Copy_of creates a copy of an array with a length or a new length. The diff equals compares 2 multiple-dimensional arrays to check whether they are deeply equal to each other. The equals method checks if 2 arrays are equal. The fill fills an array with a specified value. Mismatch returns the index position of the first image match conflict between two arrays. The sort method sorts an array in ascending order. My dear students and the rest of the learners, the question that must be lingering in your mind is, how do you tell the compiler that you want to set a memory location aside to hold the values of the same type, and these values are several, not just one? So what you do is to declare the array. So to declare an array is to define the variable type with square brackets using the following format or syntax. The data type, then square braces or square brackets, followed by the name of the array. So data type, square brackets, array name. Within the square brackets, you can enclose the number of elements that will be contained in the array. So this statement tells the compiler that the array name contains reference to an array containing data type. The declaration merely declares a reference variable called array name, which is expected to refer to an array object. Often, an array is declared and constructed in one statement like this. So data type, then the square braces that indicates that that is an array, that's a square bracket, followed by array name equals new type, then length. For example, you can have an array, or the contents of an array being assigned to another array. For example, double square brackets, grace. So the name of this array is grace, and the content, or it's being assigned a value. A value is being assigned a value of type double, which is of length 35. In other words, this is a declaration statement. It is declaring an array called grace, and this array called grace is being assigned into 8. Is being assigned into 8 values. Is being assigned into 8 values, which are what we are referring to as the length. This statement does two things. So I want to expound this statement, my dear students and the rest of the learners. It does two things. The first one, it tells the compiler that array name will refer to an array containing cells of type. Array name will refer to an array containing cells of type. Number two, it constructs an array object containing length in number of cells. I hope you have gotten that, my dear students and the rest of the learners. We are saying that if you have this kind of a declaration or this type of a statement, for example, like this, what this is doing is that number one, it is telling the compiler that what we are calling the array name, this name of the array called array name, is referring to an array containing cells of type. Remember, for length, we have enclosed 35. It constructs an array object containing length in number of cells. So we are declaring an object. We are declaring an object containing length in number of cells. Object of what type? Array. So here are some examples of array declarations. So there is an array. An array is called cost. The elements in this array is of type short. And we are enclosing count, or some number of elements. Then So this is how we declare. So this first declaration, the array is called cost and is being assigned a number of elements. We have the second one as secret key. And you can see it is going to hold values of type car. Then we have another one called future. Now these two, this as an initialization, this one as initialization, but this one does not have. It's simply a declaration of an array called future, the content not specified. So an array is an object. And like any other object in Java, it is constructed out of main storage as the program is running. The array constructor uses different syntax than other object constructors or than other object constructors. For example, we have new type of that length. This names the type of data in each cell and the number of cells. Once an array has been constructed, the number of cells it has does not change. For example, if you have an array called data and it has been given 10 cells, those cells will remain and those cells will be or will contain values of type integer. The above statement, so this statement here, defines the number of elements that the array called data can hold. As you can see, you can tell how many number of elements. So in this case, this array called data will hold 10 elements of type integer. So this array will hold 10 elements of type integer. So the array is called data. It is of type integer. And therefore the values or the elements that it is going to hold will be 10 and they will be of type integer. So you have the declaration and then you specify the number of elements that that array will hold. So in this case, we have said the array called data will hold 10 elements of type integer. How do you initialize an array? You initialize an array at declaration using the following syntax. Data type, array name equals 2. You assign it to 8 elements. For example, if you have an array called score and you want to assign to 8 specific values, then you do it as follows for a one-dimensional array. You are assigning into 8 the elements 23, 40, 35, 52, and 15. This is for one-dimensional array. Here, we have created an array named score and initialized it with the values inside the curly brackets, which are 23, 40, 35, 52, and 15. Note that we have not provided the size of the array. Why? We have not provided the size of the array because the compiler will automatically specify the size by counting the number of elements that have been assigned into that array, that is 5. So in the Java array, each memory location is associated with a number. The number is known as an array index. We can also initialize arrays in Java using the index number. In an array, the index for the first number or first element is usually 0. For example, declaring and initializing array elements. So what this statement is doing, it is simply telling the compiler that set memory location assigned called scores that is going to hold 5 elements of type integer. Then to initialize this array called scores, we can initialize those or the elements one at a time. So the name of the array followed by the index, then you assign the value. So like in this case, 23 is being assigned to the first position in the array called score, which is index 0. Then 40, the index 1, which is the scored position. Then in the fourth or in the 50th position, we are assigning 15. So simply means that in the array called scores, the array called scores has been initialized as follows. First element is 23. The second element is 40, or the last element is 15. You can also enter elements into an array input by the user directly through the keyboard. So the following is a sample program for inputting elements into an array and displaying them on the screen. So we, first of all, write the comment for the program, which is this program accepts 5 values into array and displays the array elements. That is the comment. The name of our program, or the name of our package, the name of our package or the name of our project is inputting array. Then we have import java.atil.scanner. Then the name of our class is inputting array. Then we have our main method, which is public static void main method. And then its definition is, first of all, declaration of an array. So this statement is declaring or telling a compiler set memory location assigned called array, which is going to hold 5 elements of type integer. And then we are declaring a variable called data of type integer. Then we declare an object called scan of type scanner. Then we input the data into the array. Now, how do we input elements into the array? Remember, those elements are supposed to be organized or arranged in an order from the first index, the last one. So each value is entered one at a time. And what tells the compiler where to place a value is the index for that position. So if you have an array and it is going to contain a number of elements, you use the for loop to enter the values. For example, you use the for loop as follows. For, you initialize the first index, the first position. The first position, in this case, I'm declaring a memory location, which is the counter, a memory location called index. It will serve as my counter. And I'm assigning or initializing or assigning the first value in that memory location called index 0. And 0 is of type integer. Once that is done, the next statement here, after semicolon, tells the compiler that check whether the number of elements in the array, the number of elements in the array is less than the value in index. So if the length is, for example, 5, and we have index 0, this statement will tell the compiler, check whether 0 is less than 5. 0, check whether 0 is less than 5. If it is true, the compiler will enter into the body and do the following. Prompt the user to enter an integer or a value, which is for the first index. So it will display, for example, as follows, enter integer number 0. And then the user will enter a value. That value will be assigned in memory location called data. From there, the compiler will pick that value in memory location called data and assign that value in the array at the index specified. So if index is 0, that value will be assigned into the array at index 0. And that will continue once this brace is encountered. The compiler will now come to this part of the array. It will come here on the last part, increment index with 1. So if index was 0, plus plus means increment it with 1. So 0 plus 1 will be 1. So index, the new index will be 1. Then it will check the condition again. It will check the condition and find out if 1 is less than the length of the array or the number of elements, which are 5. So is 1 less than 5? Yes. So it will perform the following operation again. Request the user to enter value at integer number 1. And then it will read the value and assign that value at the position index number 1. Then the compiler will go again increment the value of index, the value of the counter, to 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. Is 2 less than 5? Yes, it will continue that way until when the value of index will have exceeded the length. So when it reaches index, or when the index reaches 6, it will check, is 6 less than 5? That's the length of the array? No. So it will exit the loop, and we shall already have all our elements assigned in the array. From there, you can write out the data from the array as follows. The same applies. You use for loop to write each of the elements out, one at a time. So first, you assign or initialize the counter to 0, index 0. Then check if the value in the index is less than the size of the array. Is 0 less than, for example, 5? Yes. If that is true, the statement that will be executed is this one. Array index, for example, array 0 equals, it will pick the value at index 0 from the array and display it there. And then once this braces an countant, the content or the value of index will be incremented by 1. So 0 plus 1 is 1. Then it will check the condition. Is 1 less than the size of the array? Is 1 less than 5? Yes. If that is true, it will write out the next element, which is at index number 1. And that will continue that way until when the value in the index will be more than the size of the array. And then that loop will be terminated and the program will terminate. My dear students, let's see how we code this program in our IDE and see how it will behave. So what you do is we are going to launch our IDE, which in this case is Eclipse. So we click on Eclipse. We launch Eclipse. Remember, you can use other IDEs, for example, NetBeans. But the procedure is the same, and the way you code your code in Java is the same. From there, you can create a new web project. So what we need to do is to create a new project. And our project, we shall call it inputting array. So what you do, you click on File, then New, then Java project. Then we give it a name. Let's give it a name like inputting array. Then you can click on Finish. I'm calling it inputting array because ours will be for inputting values and displaying them. Then you can right click on the name of your project, a point on new, then we create a class. So click on class and remember the name of the project is usually the name of the package. So the name of the class should be the name of the file, and the name of the file should be indicative of what that file is doing. So I'll call it inputting array. Then I can add the public class static void main and click on finish. So that is our step. Then from there, we can add the statement dot java dot appeal dot scanner. Then always indent your program nicely. You can remove this comment here, which is telling you that this part of the code we have has been auto-generated. And then you can type your code here. You write your set of statements in the main. And how do you do that? You just type them. So I'll just paste my code here. Remember, these instructions, you can type them directly on your editor, or that is on your IDE, or you can type your program, for example, in our word processor, and then you just copy your program and paste it in your code or at the right position. Then always remember to indent your program nicely. So from there, I want to, let me undo the typing here. And then I can organize my braces as follows. So this one, this is the pair, that is the pair. What about this one? Is this one. What about this one? Is that one. So you can see how I've declared my array. So this is how you declare your array. You declare, you give the name, and by the way, I'm calling the name as array just that way, but you can call it anything. So array, I am declaring an array called array, which is supposed to hold the values of type integer, and the size is 5. That means its length is 5. And then this is the reading of the values. You read using for loop. And then we write out the values, just as I've explained. You can now save this program, and then we run our program that way. You can see we are now being prompted for the first value. So enter integer number 0. So we can type 67. Then we are being prompted for the second one, and type 44, 34. Another one, 79, then 34. Now what will happen once I enter the fourth one? Remember, they are being numbered from 0. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So once I enter the fifth one, the for loop for reading will be completed, and it will automatically execute this for loop and display the values at once. So let me enter the fourth value, for example, 90. Once I press enter, you can see what it is displaying. This is the bit which is being displayed. Array, index number, the value there, as you can see. And the value. What is the value? So you can see that my array is displaying the values as I entered. So the first one was 64, second one was 34, third one was 78, fourth one was 34, and the last one is 90. And that's exactly what I have written out here in this section of the output. So my dear students and the rest of the learners, it's very important for you to note how we declare variables, or how we declare arrays, how we declare arrays, and how we read the elements into the array. The most important point to remember is that because an array is a memory location that holds several values but of the same type, or several elements but of the same type, what you need to do is, first of all, request a compiler or a processor to set a memory location assigned to hold several values. That is an array. Then give that memory location a name. Specify the number of elements that that array will hold, and then read those values using for loop. Write them out using for loop, and each element in the array is represented using a specific index, and the index for the values in the array are numbered from 0 to the last index. And the content of the last index is simply the last number. For example, if an array contains 6 elements, then the last index will be 6 minus 1, meaning the index will be index 5. That's what is important for you to remember, my dear students and the rest of the learners. Once you are done, you can close all editors And then you can exit from your IDE. And my dear students and the rest of the learners, that marks the end of part 28 of the series, in which we have learned on what an array is, how you declare an array, how you initialize the arrays, how you assign elements in the array, how you write out the elements from an array. And the array we are talking about is what we call a one-dimensional array. My dear students and the rest of the learners, you can now proceed to part 29 of the series, in which you are going to learn about how to access elements in an array and also learn how to write a program that is able to not only initialize an array, assign elements in an array, but also access specific elements or values from an array. Congratulations, therefore, for learning part 28 of Part 1 on Introduction to Arrays in Fundamentals of Object-Oriented Programming using Java. You can access the rest of the parts in the series, as well as other computer or ICT videos by clicking or tapping on the MLSWAP ICT YouTube channel below this video. To subscribe to the channel, tap on subscribe button below this video in YouTube if it's not currently reading as subscribed. If you have any further correspondence or questions you would like to ask, kindly send them to us through the email mlswap@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening to me. Let's meet in part 29 of this series, and God bless.